I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe.
We've been too nice lately. Let's fight.
Let's get it on.
Yeah, we both know what's coming.
What did the FBI know? When did they know it? Was the raid on Mar-a-Lago justified? I don't think so. Here's Chuck Grassley yesterday talking about new emails from the FBI that said that the FBI internally debating, believing they did not have probable cause to raid President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, but the Biden DOJ pushed for it anyways. Was this a righteous investigation into an effort to retrieve classified information, or a political opponent using his power to raid his political opponent? This is just crazy to me. Want to get into this? We'll talk Chuck Grassley's revelation and Jack Smith before Congress today. What do you expect to hear from Republicans and Democrats? It is a closed-door session, so we'll have to wait on accounts for that. But I think that this thing was always a political effort to go after an opponent. It was not a righteous raid, but want to hear from you. Now, though, is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Wednesday morning, 39 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 65 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, the nation will hear from the president in prime time tonight. DJT said he'll speak from the White House at 7 Mountain. He did not provide any details about what he'll be speaking about. Xcel Energy says fewer customers should lose power today due to those high winds. The utility says that about 52,000 customers could be affected if the company is forced to shut off power as a safety precaution.
Due to the fact of knowing that fire season isn't just during the summer anymore and is year-round, we as residents need to make sure that we are diligent and vigilant on trying to prepare ourselves in the community for the potential.
So if you live in Jefferson, Boulder, Clear Creek, Larimer, or Weld County, you may be affected. There are a few school districts closed today on the Front Range. Check their websites or your email. Nick Reiner expected to make his first court appearance today after being charged in the murder of his parents. The 32-year-old stabbed Hollywood director Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner in their Brentwood home over the weekend, of course. Tuesday, he was formally charged with their murders, but he wasn't medically cleared to make the court appearance. The suspect in the Brown University terrorist attack remains on the loose. What is going on here? Rhode Island officials released new video Tuesday of the man who may have murdered 2 students and wounded 9 others. It again shows someone dressed in black walking along a street about the same time of the shooting at the Ivy League school on Saturday.
Vice President of the Brown Republicans might have been shot multiple times. We still don't understand if this was a targeted shooting, and they're not giving us any clue about that. We also need to know, do you need to swipe a card before you get into this building? We're hearing you have to swipe cards. So was this guy a student? Did he have access to the building? Is he an international student? How many international students do they have?
Jesse Waters, one of the dirty deep state lefties, corrupt prosecutor Jack Smith, testifying to Congress right about now this morning behind closed doors and talking about his unlawful persecution of DJT, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy.
Mr. Smith is the truth. I suspect it's highly unlikely that he's interested in an outcome punishing someone he doesn't like. and I think he's going to be held accountable.
I will not hold my breath on that one. Attorney Greg Bentley on with Jeff and Billy last hour. A new lawsuit alleges Hinge, Tinder, and Match continually recommended a convicted rapist to women in the Denver area for dates. This is absolutely frightening.
One of the victims went on a date with Dr. Matthews and was assaulted, and the next day she immediately reported it to Match. And that should have been the end of the case. They should have taken him off the platform and should have prevented him from having access to any other women. But unfortunately, he was able to create more accounts and stay on the system and continue assaulting other women for at least 3 more years. So we represent 6 victims collectively.
Jeez, he's a cardiologist.
Get the checkbook out.
That's right.
Match.
Get it out. Stephen Matthews. Wow. Yeah, get it out is right. Go ahead and write that thing to those 6 victims. Amazing. Nice job by you guys getting Greg Bentley on. That was absolutely fascinating. I couldn't believe that. Avs at Seattle last night.
McCarr for McKinnon, a one-timer wide off the end boards. They score! Brock Nelson capitalizing on a loose puck. Colorado with a breakthrough on their power play, and the Avalanche lead 4-3.
And they win it 5-3, 24-2, and 7. The Avalanche's record right now. Broncos, big day. It is Wednesday. That means back to the practice field as they prepare for the Jags coming up this weekend, going for 12 straight. 38 in Westminster, 37 in Parker, 39 in Denver. You are waking up with Jeff and Billy.
Tendons, I can see my tendons.
As a Pacific storm system in front coming out of the Pacific Northwest rapidly moves into Colorado today, generally light winds to start the day will ramp up this afternoon, and conditions will get quite windy this afternoon, this evening, and overnight into early Thursday, especially along I-25 and west. Do be ready for that. Highs today will be mild, mid to upper 60s, then the wind up to 50 miles an hour in gusts. Higher gusts in those foothill areas. There will be a small chance of a rain or snow shower this evening and overnight. Colder tonight, a low near 30. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
The TSO.
Gosh, this will get you going in the morning.
Yeah. Part of the influence in this is the Bosnian War for Independence is part of the influence of this one.
Really?
Yeah, that's part of it.
I saw an interesting argument.
Yeah.
This is a total tangent, but it gets into rock here, okay? This is rock and roll.
Yep.
Okay. Somebody was pointing out that there is a correlation between the number of rock groups reaching the Billboard Top 100 and the amount of psychotropic medicine that's being taken right now, which is that they're inverse in their correlative relationship. In other words, back 20, 30 years ago, you had a rough day. You went and listened to some rock music.
Yeah.
And it made you feel better.
Yeah.
And you could cope a little bit.
Yeah.
Now you just take pills. But the interesting thing was that there's almost no rock bands anymore on the top 100.
Yeah, some of that. See, I can understand that, but I think it's misguided. I can see the problem, and there are some issues. Part of it is just musical tastes, where we go, and rock has always sort of struggled per se as far as mainstream acceptability. I can go back to Metallica. Without the song Master of Puppets, Metallica's never played on the radio. Without that album, they were not allowed on the radio before that album, but after it dropped, there were so many people calling for that particular song that radio stations started breaking their rules of not playing it overnight, and they got more calls, and then it became something that was in regular rotation. Now you can't find a rock station, in fact, other stations that won't play. And
maybe that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Less psychotropic medicine, more heavy metal, rock out.
But in the 80s, that same music was rotting our kids' brains. We had to put labels on it, remember? So I don't know.
Touche, Mr. Thorpe. All right. Headline coming from Newsweek. Disputes in probable cause for Mar-a-Lago raid. Emails released by the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley detailed deliberations in 2022 when Joe Biden was president as the FBI and the Justice Department weighed how to recover classified documents believed to remain in Trump's Florida home. The correspondence shows FBI officials urging prosecutors to consider less intrusive options, including working through Trump's attorney before seeking a search warrant. Patel posting on X, "It's true. We just turned over documents to Capitol Hill to be made public, showing the FBI and DOJ they told the DOJ they did not have probable cause for raiding President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago, but DOJ, quote, didn't give a damn, unquote, and did it anyways." The Justice Department has not commented publicly on the documents release. Why does this matter? Well, Trump was later charged by special counsel Jack Smith with offenses related to the handling of classified materials and pleaded not guilty. The charges were dropped in July 2024 when federal judge Eileen Cannon, who oversaw the case, issued the order on the grounds that special counsel Jack Smith was not properly appointed. Patel, who now leads the FBI, a Trump ally, said the records demonstrate that agents warned the Justice Department that probable cause had not been firmly established and that pursuing a warrant could be counterproductive. In a letter accompanying the production, the FBI told Grassley that the materials were provided in response to congressional oversight requests and related to the investigation into Trump's handling of classified information after leaving office. The Bureau said the documents were released with limited redactions to protect sensitive law enforcement and personal information, and offered to brief lawmakers further. The emails revealed that FBI officials in the Washington field office argued as early as June and July of 2022 that Trump's attorney, Evan Cochran, had previously cooperated with investigators and represented the most effective path to securing remaining records. Agents noted that weeks spent debating a search warrant had slowed efforts to recover classified materials and suggested renewed outreach to Cochran could resolve the issue more quickly. At the same time, the correspondence shows prosecutors pushing for a broad search, expressing concern that documents may have been moved throughout the Mar-a-Lago property. Justice Department officials resisted narrowing the scope of a potential warrant, citing uncertainty over where classified materials were stored. The emails also reference internal discussions about other potential witnesses that they could connect with. Bill, in my mind, this is clear evidence that this was a politically motivated prosecution and that law enforcement officials, particularly the FBI, said, hey, we have a pathway to get these. And Trump's not the only one out there that's had disputes with DOJ with regards to classified documents. Clinton, Obama, Biden, and Pence all had disputes, all worked out negotiated ways in order to get classified material returned. Trump had done that. There is evidence that his attorney had done that. The FBI wanted to use that route, but no, the DOJ, politicized and led by Joe Biden, wanted to go after a political opponent, wanted to dig through his wife's underwear drawers. That's what they did. This is clear evidence that that is what happened. Your response, sir?
Yeah, it's nothing close to that. Not even close to any clear evidence. This is just showing that there were some internal conversations about whether or not we should execute a search warrant. Those are conversations that happen in every case, all the time. Those are conversations that happen on charging decisions. Those conversations happen 100% of the time behind the scenes about, is this necessary? Do we need to do this? I just want to know how much longer we were supposed to wait for the classified documents, because those had been requested for quite some time, and he had yet to produce them. They keep coming out in a trickle.
That's not true. You said not yet produced them. He had produced some of them.
No. They came out in a trickle. He had produced some, not all of them. We know after the raid, there were a bunch that he hadn't produced. He was required to produce those. They were under subpoena at the time. That's important. They had gone so far as to go to a grand jury and get a subpoena for the documents. He needed to turn the documents in, and he kept saying no. We have contemporaneous examples of him having meetings with his lawyers about how they were going to hide them. There's one lawyer saying where Trump makes a gesture about couldn't it just disappear was the implication of the stuff that he wanted out of there. This was an attempt to hide the documents. How much more time is he supposed to have? There were 3 different times that he turned over documents, and in those they had over 200 of them. Over 200! In 3 different times he was asked to turn them in. They still didn't have everything, and they knew there was more there because they were allowed to go into his storage room that was next to the pool, and they saw a bunch of boxes, and they weren't allowed to look in the boxes. And sure enough, when they showed up, the other thing we know is that he moved them, that he took them outside of Mar-a-Lago and put them on his plane. So the idea of maybe executing a search warrant when the person seems to be moving the items might be important. If you know that you've got possible evidence of a crime in a house or a home somewhere, do you wait until they move it? If you know they are? How long are you supposed to? No, this is silly. I mean, I don't understand at all why this is a big deal. This is the constant communication and questions that happen inside of any sort of investigation. But the bottom line is...
Big deal.
No.
They raided his home, his personal home, armed. They dug through his wife's personal drawers.
So
and
what?
this isn't the only classified document dispute.
So
There's
what?
been plenty. Really?
Who else?
So
Yeah.
what?
Yes, so what? Here's the reason why.
Fourth Amendment, Bill. Unreasonable search and
It is
seizure.
not unreasonable search and
Don't
seizure.
tell me that there's
No.
so what?
This is so what? So what about the underwear drawer? So what? That was the house in which the classified documents were stored. We know he moved them. We have evidence of him moving
This
them.
has
and they
never
were stored.
happened
Hang on.
to a president before, ever.
Okay, tell me.
Ever. This was...
What other president
this
has
was
done this?
Wild.
What other president has done this?
There's been past classified document disputes with Clinton,
not-
Obama, Biden, and Pence,
Not the same
including
thing.
vice presidents who don't have this type of
Not
power.
the same thing. I said
And
this
never
thing.
once did armed
When did
searches
this?
take place
When
of
did
their
this?
wives'
No,
personal
no,
drawers.
No, not the question I asked. When did this happen? When did the president or the official refuse to return them?
Clinton and Obama.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yes.
When? When did Clinton say, no, you
There
can't have
were-
this stuff back?
There were classified document disputes with both those administrations, and they worked through attorneys via negotiation to have documents returned, which is exactly what they were doing with Trump. They jumped ahead because at the
They had a subpoena.
At the time, Joe Biden and Donald Trump were running against each other. This is absolutely Biden using the power of the DOJ to go after a political opponent.
They had a subpoena. This is ideas. What happened was that the DOJ was that Trump wasn't giving them back. He was giving them back in a trickle. There was a negotiation between Obama and Clinton. There also was a negotiation to look at the files, but there never was a, no, these are mine, you can't have them. And that's what Trump did. They slow-walked this entire time. They refused to give things back. They wouldn't let them look at things. There was no negotiation.
Bill, there's email evidence right here. The FBI agent said the quickest way to get these back is to continue to negotiate, and that the effort to get a search warrant was actually harming the process. Oh, my goodness. Feel free to join the conversation.
He's not supposed to turn them over after a subpoena?
303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's go to the phone lines. Ken in Littleton. Good morning, Ken. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Oh, man, I'm so glad to talk to you guys. Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I don't know what's wrong with you, like what's wrong with your brain, but you seem like you're stupid.
Yeah, Ken, I hope you enjoyed that, Ken.
I did smoke
I'm sure
pot
it's
in middle school.
I assume it's to me. Normally, these are things to me. You know, Ken, I hope you feel you're cute. I appreciate that. Coming on here and the ideas you make personal attacks. What this is telling the audience, Ken, and I know you can hear me right now, is that you can't foment a series of intellectually consistent thoughts. You have the inability to argue the issue or discuss the issue that we have on here. You, however, have the ability at every sixth grade bully. You go on the playground, you call people's names. You started off and sit here and insult someone's intelligence. If you actually want to participate in the conversation, Ken, you get on here and you put a string of sentences together and you make an argument about the subject. If you want to come in here and call names, listen, I can go as hard as you can. And I'll guarantee you this, at the end, you're going to cry. Okay? I went through this on playgrounds. I went through this in school. I've gone through this professionally. You want to do insults? Nah. Yeah, you don't have a stomach for insults. Grow up. Goddamn, get a helmet. This is stupid. Ken, be a better person. During Christmas, you call in and you pull that kind of ass hattery. Yeah, what's wrong with you? And guess what, Ken? You know what? You thought you were so clever getting on the air? Jeff and I had a conversation before we went to your phone call, and we said, that's exactly what we expect from you. We knew you were playing some sort of a game when you called in. We were right. We knew exactly who you were. We knew what you were going to do on the air, and that's why I cut you off so quick. We had you figured out before we even said hello. So before you pick up that phone call and put the 10 numbers in the digits next time, Ken, and I know that's not your real name, because I do know your real name. I've got it written down here, because, you know, the phone tells us. Just saying. Hope you have a good
Bill's
holiday
always
season.
fun because Bill and I could get at it, and then somebody jumps in with a sucker punch, and he's like, what the heck?
Oh, yeah.
And then just turns around, and all of a sudden, when the two of us are adversarial, it's now Bill Thorpe's your greatest ally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm the person that, okay, if you got two people in a circle fighting, some dude jumps in from the outside, I'm beating that dude's ass. If the rules were one-on-one, I'm beating your ass. You're jumping into this thing. No, that ain't cool. And you come in and sucker punch my friend during any sort of a fight, yeah, that's your butt, too. Yeah, I got no time.
When people do call me stupid, I just want to remind them I was educated in a government-run school and I did smoke pot. So there's a lot to work there.
Nicely done. That was good.
Sorry.
That was good. Again, the insults of what you come with this job. I'm so disappointed sometimes at how unclever they are. Oh well. You know.
Social media is a great training ground for that too.
Yeah.
So, for instance, oftentimes on X, I have one post right now about pot that's got 1.5 thousand comments.
That's
not
insane.
Likes. Comments.
That
and
is
some of them are
insane.
hilarious from you are all hat and no cattle, and I'm like, I am all hat and some goats.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not the argument you think it is. It's not the clever insult.
It's actually kind of fun. But
yeah,
anyways,
exactly.
I digress. Feel
let's
free
go
to
back
join the
Mar-a-Lago.
conversation on the classified documents, and we would appreciate well put together thoughts.
Yeah.
Or at
Otherwise,
least some put together thoughts.
Otherwise, we'll put you on hold and then we'll make fun of you for a while. Isn't that right, Ken?
303-696-1971 is the phone line. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Speaking of great defenders, Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who've been hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis. That means he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Kathy and Aurora, maybe next time just leave Ken on hold until he gets tired and goes away.
Yeah. The thing is we weren't 100% sure on it. We just had some
Bill, your
feelings.
spidey sense was up.
Yeah, I just said something's off on this. It was just, there was
There you
a
go.
feeling. Yeah, something was off. But again, we'll give you the space because I'm not a divine oracle, so I could be totally wrong. That's okay. And we always will give you the space here. And then it's your job not to step in it.
All right. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Aw,
A Colorado Christmas.
this is fun.
I don't think I've ever heard this.
Really?
No, A Colorado Christmas by the Nitty. I feel like this
you
is
don't know
a song
this?
I might
okay,
like.
Here, listen to this for a second. Oh, this is beautiful.
What?
Yeah, this is great. And I think, again, growing
This
up
is
here,
like
you have a
going
special
on my
appreciation
list
for this.
now. I've never
you
even
should.
heard this song.
Really? Oh,
Oh.
this is late 70s is when this was recorded. I think it was recorded not in Nashville, but in California. For some reason, that's sticking in my head.
You wouldn't know that.
I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense.
Wow. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking shocking new revelations from the FBI showing that the FBI, via emails, did not believe it had probable cause to raid President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. But the Biden DOJ pushed for it anyways. And here's the point I'm trying to bring up is this isn't the only dispute over classified documents. It's happened between Clinton, Obama, Biden, and Pence. Now with Trump. And what the emails show is that they had developed a pathway. And in fact, the FBI was arguing that the quickest way to get these documents was to continue to work with Trump's lawyer. They had gotten some. They wanted more. The FBI was saying this was the best way to get the documents. But no, the Biden DOJ wanted to utilize the power of the deep state to go after a political opponent, raid every aspect of his house, including his wife's underwear drawers. Then they staged the pictures, lay them all out to make it look like it was terrible. This was an overreach by an aggressive Biden DOJ to go after a political opponent. The evidence is all there. It's super clear. Your response?
Yeah. Do we remember the guy that posted the classified information on the gaming site? They should have raided his house. Threw him in jail. In fact, not even close to any sort of discussions about should you have these or not. Hang on. But discussions about should you have them, should you not. It happened to a seasoned Air Force officer who had classified documents. Hang on. Who had classified documents, not entitled to, and didn't have any negotiations. And at the time, Trump, not the president. He's not the president. He's private citizen Trump. And private citizen Trump has no claim on those documents. Those are the property of the United States government. He is not entitled to those. They are not his property. He does not get to keep them. There is no way functionally for the president to take government property and transfer that into private property after they leave office. This is not his property. He's not entitled to it, shouldn't have had it. It doesn't matter. And again, he's private citizen Trump at that point. That's it. In fact, he had less of a claim to them technically than the guy that was actually a government contractor at the time who ripped him off and was still employed by the government. I mean, if that's an issue, are you in the government or not? Trump's not part of the government at that time. So he can't have any of those classified documents, and they're not his. So he should have returned them. He needed to. They had gone through negotiations. The negotiations had dragged on for so long, and he had made so many refusals, and they were trickling out at such a slow process. They were getting 200 at the time, and that was still slow, given all the ones that he had. They went and got a subpoena, and he still ignored it. What else are they supposed to do? Are you just supposed to say, well, we gave him a subpoena, maybe someday he'll decide to turn them into us? Is he just supposed to get to keep them? That's the issue. That's not any sort of malicious prosecution.
He gets to keep them. He's
Why?
the president of the United States.
No, he's
and
not.
There's a pathway.
No, he's not, Jeff.
To determine whether or not those classified documents are still classified.
He's not the president. They're not his property.
Trump made the argument that during his time in the presidency, he declassified them.
Do we have anything showing that?
Yeah.
What?
Trump's saying that.
No. We have no other corroboration.
Right, because you want this process that doesn't actually exist.
No, it does.
There
is a process.
Formal paperwork by law that has to be filled out and signed off by somebody.
There is a formal process for declassifying documents. They have a
Not by law.
process.
Not by law.
That
He can
doesn't
as
matter.
president. He is president right
That's
now.
irrelevant.
No, it's totally relevant.
No, it
He
isn't.
could wave a magic wand. He could go, I hereby declassify these documents, and they are declassified. Now, you may not like that process. You may say that doesn't follow the standards right now, but those aren't legally required. The only thing that's legally required is that he deemed them unclassified, which is what he said.
Yeah, here's the thing. He said that after the fact, and we have no contemporaneous examples of him saying that. We have absolutely no conversations. We have no communications. And you know what's most important? There's nothing changed on the documents. If President Trump grabs his magic wand and waves them and says, these I declare unclassified, the classification markings on the paper has to change. That's the process we speak of. So there is a paper trail.
So if there is this process that exists, how did Joe Biden, as vice president of the United States, end up with classified documents in his garage?
Different question, because what we're focusing on right now is the fact that Donald Trump never declassified these. You're changing horses on us.
No, you're saying there's a process that the documents need to be changed and all that stuff. And if that's the case, if this process works and it's so important, how did Joe Biden end up as vice president?
Wait, hang on a sec.
And now a private citizen end up with these in his garage?
Hold on. Talking about the process is different than whether or not Joe Biden had them in his garage and whether or not Donald Trump had them in his bathroom and his copy room and his pool room and elsewhere in Mar-a-Lago. Okay? The process is whether or not the documents were classified, which is your argument. I never made an assertion that the documents that Joe Biden had were declassified in any way, shape, or form. He should not have had those. And if we want to charge him for having those, I'm perfectly fine for charging him for those. But then we also, in theory, should charge Mike Pence, and we also get to charge Donald Trump for having them as well. It's not the get out of jail free card that you think it is. If the process was followed and they were actually declassified, we would have a paperwork trail showing that. Donald Trump can't, after the fact, say, oh yeah, I just one time declared them they weren't classified anymore, and so that's it. You can't do that after the fact. It has to be done contemporaneously, and then there's a process and procedure that exists there, and we would see it inside the paperwork. Nothing exists. We don't even have any record of him having a single conversation with anyone. But the most important piece about that, about whether or not they're declassified, then we could all see them publicly. We can't.
Mr.
We can't
Thorpe,
see him publicly.
You're making the argument that Donald Trump did not follow this process. And the example that this process was not followed was classified documents ended up in his personal residence. So clearly evidence that Donald Trump chose not to follow this esteemed and critically important process. And all I'm pointing out is that you have plenty of other examples of elected officials, whether it's Clinton, Biden, Obama, or Pence, who ended up with similarly classified documents that were not clearly followed through with the right process in their personal
that's not
houses.
But that's
and
what they're
then,
admitting.
and then when there was a negotiation on whether to have them back, in all those cases, Clinton, Obama, Biden, and Pence, they all worked through their lawyers. They figured out which ones were real and that were actually classified, needed to be returned. They were doing the same thing with Trump. Now, you could say it wasn't happening fast enough. Well, the FBI in their own emails are saying that the fastest way to get this back is to continue to work with the attorney. And instead of doing that, an aggressive Biden-led DOJ wanting to go after a political opponent, kicked in doors armed, raided the wife's personal drawers, and searched his entire residence when the FBI said that wasn't even necessary to do.
Yeah, it's not what I'm saying at all. What I said is that there's no proof of Donald Trump ever declassifying these documents. I never made any claims about declassification for any of the other documents in any other issues. I still am unaware of either the Clinton or the Obama issues. I'm aware of the Biden and the Pence ones, but I'm not aware of any classified documents per se that they were necessarily in possession of that would be similar to these cases. The Pence and the Biden ones seem to be. What that is telling me is our process of vetting when people leave office is absolutely crap. And that seems to be consistent across numerous administrations. But it still does not prove that what Donald Trump claims, that he declassified them. Biden and Pence never claimed that any of those documents were declassified, or anyone did. It's vastly different. Donald Trump is claiming that he has every right to possess these documents, where in the cases of Pence and Biden, they turned around and basically said, come and get them. I shouldn't have these. That's an issue based on vetting post-administration. And again, consistent. Not the same thing with Donald Trump, who seems to be purposefully hiding them. In fact, taking them with him on his plane to different locations, which again, not okay. Also, in all the cases between Biden, Pence, and Trump, still not their documents. They still have no personal claim to have these in their possession, regardless of whether or not Donald Trump declassified them or not. It becomes irrelevant because it doesn't belong to him. He's a private citizen. They're not his.
Text messages on both sides of this. Jason in Denver saying that if Trump declassified the documents, they'd be open to freedom of information requests, and anyone could get access to the information. 6464 saying, Bill, you should stop digging. There was never a valid reason to raid Mar-a-Lago. It's just another example of a puppet president and his AG who was mad he wasn't a justice on the Supreme Court. You're still digging. Bill, the POTUS has sole power to, by action or desire, declassify any information.
But we've walked through that. Where is it on any of the documents? Because that has to be done. He can't just in his mind because everybody else around him has to know they're declassified. There's a process and procedure. It's not an issue of law. It's a process inside of the White House and the administration. And it's fair for Donald Trump to claim they were declassified at the time, but we would see the paperwork. There is none. We don't have a single sheet of paper. We don't have an email. We don't have a signal chat. We don't have a text message.
Doesn't need to.
Yes, he does.
No,
yes.
He can wave the magical wand.
Hang on, Jeff. You're
legally.
Missing. Jeff, I'm not. Wait, you're missing the point. I'm not talking legality. I'm talking about if it exists. Because as soon as he does declassify them, there's a process it goes through. And that is a paperwork process. And here's why it's important. If he does not go through that process, nobody else around him knows those documents are classified, treats them as classified, or views them as classified. He may think that in his mind, but those documents functionally are not declassified. That's not an issue of law. That's an issue of process.
You said that it might be a process problem, but is it a legal problem? Is it worth prosecuting Donald Trump over?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yes, because they're not his documents. They don't belong to him and they're classified. We have no proof they're declassified. And so we assume they're classified because those are the markings that are still extant on the documents.
You want to prosecute the president over this?
He's not the president. He's not. He's private citizen Trump, and private citizen Trump has no claim to those documents. That's important. He's not the president when he's charged with this. He has zero claim to those government documents. They are not the property of former President Trump. And he just happens to be a political opponent to Biden. Capitol Hill Phil texting in, I don't think particularly high of the president. I don't think particularly high of most presidents. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt that he took the documents by accident and didn't do the easy thing when he could have done when he was president. One of the most relatable things about Donald Trump is that he doesn't give a crap about things that he doesn't think matter. So I think I understand why he wasn't in a hurry to bend over backwards. But from what I've seen, they gave him lots of opportunities. When they caught Biden with the boxes, he squared up with them pretty quickly, as I understand it. This is not an endorsement of Joe Biden, because that would be insane. But remember
this
also,
one particular instance, if you compare their behaviors, it seems like one of them took care of working with the federal government faster than the other.
Well, the other one is, remember, Donald Trump moved them around, referred to them as his boxes, and tried to hide the information. In fact, they have information that when the FBI was going to show up and do an inspection of the pool room, the documents were moved and boxes were moved. And remember, he stored some of these classified documents next to a printer. Some of them were in a bathroom. And that's not where those documents need to be stored or should be stored.
He probably didn't know they were in there, to be honest.
He referred to them over and over again as his documents, and they were mixed in with his personal effects. But again, if he was so worried about not knowing, then they should have done a look. He turned over 223 before they did the raid. And they found...
So you can't make the argument that he was holding on to everything. He was turning them back in.
That's not my argument. Never has been. My argument is he was trickling them out. The first time he gave them 184. The next time it was 38. The next time it was 11. That's a trickle. That's his behavior. That's the issue. That's the issue. He was keeping them, and he wanted to keep them, and he was delivered a subpoena. That's it. It's not his stuff.
Here's what I want to hear from our listeners. Where do you fall along the lines on this? Was Donald Trump wrong that he should be prosecuted? He was clearly slow walking this. He had documents that he shouldn't have. Those belong to the American people, and in fact were a threat to the safety of the United States. and he deserves to be prosecuted. Jack Smith was right. Biden was right. Or, as what I believe to be the case and clearly revealed in this evidence, that the FBI had a pathway to get these documents. It was working. Negotiations were happening. But when you got a political opponent, you can kick down his door armed and raid his wife's personal belongings. Go all Machiavelli. And that's how Democrats really act. They use all their power to destroy their political opponents. What do you think? Join the conversation. Here's the phone line. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line at 720-819-5115. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader. We all know how horrible it is when you go after your political opponents. Just ask Comey and James, right? Oh, yeah. That's a different thing, right, though? Yeah. Okay. We're Denver's talk leader. We'll be right back after this. KNUS. Oh, yeah. We've talked about this Gene Autry song before, but this was his entry into being a holiday recorder. And Johnny Marks actually came to him and wanted him to do the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer song, and he didn't want to. And he said, but you did so well with this one. Eventually persuaded him, and that was a good deal because they sold 2.5 million copies of that single. After that, when they came to him with Frosty, he goes, yeah, okay, I'll sing Frosty. It sounds like a good idea. It's a good business move. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, joining us live in studio to preview his show this Saturday, Peter Boyles. Good morning, Pete.
Hoppy Gene and me. Yeah.
Yes. I love that song.
Hopalong Cassidy raised everybody, Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. They raised us all. Hey, man, thank you. Good show coming in. And wasn't that a good Christmas party?
Oh, it's wonderful.
The holiday party, the radio station.
So much fun.
Everybody was there. That was good stuff.
Yeah.
This Saturday is Tom Tancredo's 80th birthday.
Wow.
80.
Don't wow that too quick. So we're going to have a Tom Tancredo 80th birthday party on the air Saturday morning. And I wrote some questions down, and Jeff and I were talking about it. What if Tom ran for governor? And that's a whole political swindle story that we will tell on the air. But had he won, and you remember when he ran for president, and hypothetically, what if Tom Tancredo had become the governor of the state of Colorado? Would Colorado be in the shape that it's in now?
And that was 2010.
Yes.
Right? That was the height of the Tea Party.
Well, it was Dan Mays.
Mays, and Colorado gets kind of close with Ken Buck for Senate, and I think was that the same year? Or was that 12? It was right around the same time, but the Colorado could never really close on the Tea Party movement.
Yeah, and the crazy part on that is, if I remember, isn't it Hickenlooper that ends up taking the governor's seat and then goes on to become senator and other things? Does Hickenlooper's career turn? Do we end up with someone different in that Senate seat? Does Tancredo's image rise that he then can make a run for president?
Tommy ran as it was the Constitution Party.
Yes, Constitution.
So he almost broke the Republican Party.
Yeah. Almost made them a minority party, because if it had dropped below 10%, it would have been out there with the Libertarians.
I think the number they got was 13%. Yeah. Wow. I think they just missed it by 2. And of course, the Republicans then turned their back on Tom. Was
Wadhams the chairman at that time, or was that before? Or after Wadhams?
I think that was before Wadhams. That's another good question. I'll get Wadhams on the show and ask him. But then Tom comes back and runs for president. And remember, I think there were the dwarfs. Remember, they were all lined up, and all these different Republicans, and they had a debate, and they put Tommy way on the end.
Yep.
And he got, because he didn't have a shot, but he is such a stalwart and such a wonderful friend, and he was right.
On a lot.
On 99% of it.
Illegal immigration, one of the big ones he's known for.
He was on it about population. He was on it about crime, about guns. I mean, you get on a list of things, and he's just been a wonderful friend. And we have great radio stories together. And
what's something about Tom that the average person wouldn't know?
Say that again.
What's something about Tom that being his friend, that the average person wouldn't know?
He worked at Elitch's as a kid. He ended up getting a job at Elitch's, and they were all interconnected in North Denver. We have that standing lunch that we do with Tancredo and Gary DeFrange and Frank DeAngelis. They were all North Denver kids, and all did well. And Tommy,
he was a member of Congress for a decade.
Yes,
took over Dan Schaefer's seat.
Yep, and that's another
6th district.
Yep.
Then succeeded by Kaufman, now held by Jason Crow.
That's right.
That was Tom Tancredo's
That's
seat.
right. Had a lock. And I would go back and see him in D.C., or he would be here, and we would go have lunch. And one of the things that he had said to me was, the hardest thing to do is raise money. And he said, and I think you and I have talked about this, he said when he won or was reelected, I said, what's the first thing you did? On the phones. Yeah. Calling for money for the next time. Yep. And he's got a wonderful story. It's how he ended up saving the lives of these young sub-Saharan African kids, and it's moving. And he'll tell the story. I'll get him to tell a story. He's going to be in studio with us. And
is that like a Charlie Wilson type of thing, where he just gets a project and kind of goes off on it?
You know, Tom's like yourself. Tom's a devout guy, and I don't want to take the story from him because it's his, but how he believes his life was intervened, and how he ended up in Congress, and then because that had happened, it's like this unintended consequence that, and DeAngelis has a story like that too, about coming out of his office where the shooters are in the school, and he's carrying a key ring with him with 40 keys on it, and these young girls are backed against the door, and Frank went down, pulled the key ring, first key opens the doors. And he said he tried it 30 times afterward. He could never make it happen again. And Tom tells a similar story about ending up in helping save these young kids. And he'll do it on the show on Saturday. It's his story. But we have great lives together. And he's a stalwart, and so it's his birthday. So we're going to...
Are you going to take calls? Will people be able to call in and wish Tommy the... I always referred to him as Tommy the Tank.
He always
was. He was just this force.
Yeah, we
right?
talk... I mean, I was at places with him where I saw the party really do some backstabbing. And had those guys... We talk about Bill Armstrong a lot, you and I, and had those guys stayed in the saddle, things I think would have been different. But now we are where we are. You're right. Jason Crow holds the seat. So,
fascinating. That'll be great. This Saturday, 9 to 1, 710 KNUS. Peter Boyles, Tommy, the Tank Credo.
He's coming in, man. It's his birthday.
Oh, that'll be great.
We'll 80 years old, looking great, full of energy. It'll be a great show. We'll continue. We're going to talk Trump now listing additional countries on his No Come to America list. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.